Hey, everybody, good to have you here. It is Friday Eve. You know how I always say that on Thursday nights because we're almost there. And I got a humdinger for you tonight. A lot of material in this true crime program. Do not go anywhere. We're going to start with this crazy story out of Michigan. I didn't really think it was true. I thought it was a typo. This 22-year-old girl goes missing. She's pregnant. She's due to give birth within 2 weeks. She goes missing, and 3 weeks later, she's found dead. But she's no longer pregnant. Do what now? Here's where it gets crazy. They arrest her biological mother and her stepfather and charge them with murder, torture, and a whole lot more. And these are not mugshots that are going to bode well. But that's not all. Other family members were arrested too, like the victim's sister and the victim's sister's fiance. It's like a family affair here, this mugshot grid. And yet, nobody can figure out where's the baby. We did hear, horrifyingly, that the baby was cut from Rebecca's womb while she was still alive. But this one defies logic. It defies the odds. The family members all arrested. I'll tell you a whole bunch more, plus an exclusive tape tonight you won't have heard anywhere else. It's the victim on a voicemail right before she's headed to see the family for the last time. Okay, also, Luigi Mangione, strip searched. Oh, yeah, I caught your attention, didn't I? Yeah, that caught my attention in court today. The officer that was there for the strip search, he had to say, well, we turned our body cams off for that one. But they did tell us everything they found on that guy, on his body. Gray suit today, by the way, in court. He's gone from the dark suit to the gray suit. He gets the normal street sartorial dress for court, not the jailhouse jumpsuit, but keep in mind he is still an inmate. And guess what else they found on Luigi when they arrested him? A necklace with a little pendant. Not so much a pendant, a USB drive. Yeah, Luigi was wearing a USB drive hanging around his neck, and they confiscated it. It is evidence, and now you got me. You got my attention. Because I'm thinking whatever's on that USB drive, we may not need that backpack. I'm going to get into all of that in a moment. And then, okay, I have always wondered, in a creepy way, what did Epstein's pedophile island really look like? Little St. Jean. You know, he's got that private island, right, in the Caribbean. Did before he's dead. And only the big money folks have private islands, like Richard Branson, you know, and they're just, you know, worth tens and tens of millions of dollars, and they're lavish and gorgeous, and they're just like, you look at them and you just salivate, right? So I always wondered what Epstein's island would look like, because that guy, he had money, like money, right? This is it. Can you believe this? This is the junker of a house that he lived in on Epstein Island. I can see that the structure's nice, but look at the junk and how random it all is. Like, I'm gonna say this right now. He had zero taste. He had zero flair. He couldn't even finish a room. Everything was random and messy and half done. Bookshelves not even filled. Like, look at this, just junk cluttered in every room. This is not the epitome of luxury that you would think you would be going to if you were going to some super ultra rich guy's private island. This looks like, I mean, and then there's this. Like, look at this. The room with the weird, freaky faces all over the wall and stacked on the counter. And in that room also, you might see it in a second, and if you don't, you're gonna, a dentist's chair, a real functioning dentist's chair. What was this stuff, Jeffrey Epstein? Who were these weird faces on your wall? And why a functioning dental chair in this room? All of that coming just ahead. And I've got lots more for you to ogle at from Epstein's private island, pedophile island. I'm going to start here, though, tonight with evidence you won't see anywhere else. In a murder case I hope we never see again. A 22-year-old Michigan woman, Rebecca Park, goes missing the night of November 3rd. She's 38 weeks pregnant. 2 weeks, give or take, from delivery. But on November 25th, 3 weeks and 1 day later, she's found dead in a national forest. She'd been stabbed to death and her unborn baby cut from her womb. And now that baby is nowhere to be found. This is a bit of a head scratcher. Somehow police still say the baby's dead, even though they don't know where the baby is. But it gets worse. Police arrest the victim's own birth mother and stepfather, who were absent for most of her life, but reconnected in 2021. Tonight, the one on the right there, that would be Courtney Bartholomew, and the one on the left there, Bradley Bartholomew, they are charged, among other things, with first-degree murder, felony murder, torture, conspiracy to torture, assault of a pregnant woman, and unlawful imprisonment. That is a mouthful, and that is also many, many years if they're guilty. A prosecutor calls the couple, and I quote, evil personified. Here's what allegedly happened. Police say they lured their daughter to their home, but put her in a truck instead and drove her into the woods and, quote, tortured Rebecca Park in an attempt to remove the unborn infant, resulting in the death of both. And when the deed was done, but while it was still a secret, birth mom, Courtney, spoke to true crime podcaster Stephanie Pratt. She told Stephanie that she had planned to visit her daughter and give her daughter some money that she'd made from selling some land. In hindsight, that may have been part of the alleged plot to lure the victim to her death.
She whispered under her breath, Mom, you're going to have the 2,000, right? I said, yeah. And she's like, okay. And that was all she said.
Yeah, but that tape pops up in her trial. Podcaster also obtained a voicemail from the victim herself, which was left right around the time of her disappearance. From the grave, Rebecca Park's voice is heard telling a friend about her biological mother's plan to take her out for milkshakes and give her some money. I want you to listen closely to this exclusive voicemail never played before on TV.
Like, I'm not trying to just make it all about money, and I really don't give a but I told her that. So today she's supposed to actually give me the actual but we'll see how that goes. And which means money-wise, and go out for shakes. So we'll see.
But now we know how that went. After Rebecca Park was found slaughtered, her mom, Courtney Bartholomew, spoke to the podcaster Stephanie Pratt again. And this time, she decided to blame her daughter Rebecca's death on her other daughter. That would be Kimberly, right there on the left. But, you know, for good measure, she threw in Rebecca's fiancé, a man named Rich Fowler.
Kimmy is in jail, and so is Rich. Do you know what they're going to be charged with at the preliminary hearing?
Homicide.
Your grandson is missing. What do you think about this, the baby? Could the baby still be alive?
I hope so.
Well, none of that was true, but Kimberly Park, the victim's sister, is charged with tampering with evidence and lying to police, while Rebecca's fiancé, Richard Fowler, is charged with drug crimes. And that's curious. Joining me now with much more on all of this is Stephanie Pratt. You just saw her. It's her podcast called Steph's Case Files. Good to have you on, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to ask you what you think the most important information was that you learned from your interviews.
Well, I learned the timeline, which is so important. And I learned inconsistencies in the timeline that Courtney was given and the descriptions that she was giving of Rebecca getting into that mystery car on November the 3rd. And through our interviews, things started not to add up and didn't make sense. And I knew something nefarious had happened.
So tell me what you know, or at least what you suspect happened after the victim went to her family's home. Like, sort of take me moment by moment.
Sure. So on November the 3rd, 2025, Courtney went over to Rich's house, which Rich is the fiance, to pick Courtney up to take her to go for shakes. This is between 6:30 and 7 p.m. on November the 3rd. She arrives. They pick her up. This is according to Courtney herself and her own timeline. By 7:30, they're back at home. And Courtney said that they sat in the driveway and planned the baby shower. And then all of a sudden, a car pulled up. And Rebecca said, "Mom, I have somebody coming to get me." And Courtney said, "What do you mean? Who's coming to get you?" And she said that Rebecca took the $2,000, all in $100 bills, put it in a pocket, and got in the mystery car and drove away. That was the last time she claims that she saw her. But the interesting part is she says that happened around 8:30. And by 11 o'clock, she was calling Rich, the fiance, so many times in a row to try to get his attention, but he was asleep at home. So they set up this whole thing to have Rich ping the phone so that they could find the phone. And then when they found the phone, that's when the timeline began of where is Rebecca and her baby.
Can I jump in for a moment, too? And I'm just going to ask our control room to put that graphic up with all four of the faces again so that we can get real clarity. It's confusing. So Courtney Bartholomew is the biological mom. And, of course, you're not seeing on the screen Rebecca, the victim here. But Rebecca's mom is Courtney Bartholomew. And Bradley Bartholomew is her husband. And then Kimberly Park is the victim's sister. And Richard Lee Fowler is the victim's fiance. But is it true that Courtney, that mom, also dated that fiance of her daughter?
Yes, that is true. They dated until 2023, from what I understand. And Rebecca, who was 22, started dating Rich. They became engaged, and she became pregnant.
Okay. So next question. You did some interviews before and after Rebecca's body was found. How did things change from this mom, Courtney, as to what she told you before Rebecca was found and what she told you after Rebecca was found dead?
Well, it's interesting because she repeated this timeline of this mystery car. And I kept asking her, "Courtney, that doesn't make any sense." She wouldn't last very long on the road with only $2,000. Do you think that she left Rich? And Courtney was adamant that she left Rich to get away from his ways. But she didn't want to search. She said that she was disabled and in the wheelchair. I noticed that. But I also noticed as time went on, when protesters started protesting in front of the home, she became agitated and wanted to schedule a search at approximately 11 a.m. on November the 25th, when Rebecca was found. She came out to her driveway the day before. She set it up. They met at the house. And sure enough, right where she pointed is where they found Rebecca's body, which, by the way, wasn't there the day before when that area had been searched. So Rebecca had been moved overnight.
So she said something also after Rebecca's body was found, something about losing a child. Can you explain what she told you?
Yes. So after Rebecca's body was found, she came on for another interview. And this time she was more emotional, saying that no one knows what it's like to lose a child, quote unquote. And I found it peculiar that she was soaking in this support, trying to find her grandson. And all this time, she knows and knew where they were.
Here's the other thing that I couldn't, well, I guess I could believe it because I couldn't figure out why a mom would do something like this to her own biological daughter, cut a fetus out while that daughter is alive. But you learned something that might point to motive. What was it?
Well, we know that Courtney Bartholomew sent a message from her Facebook to someone telling them that she had a baby in the NICU, born early, and he was having trouble breathing. This is in October, just before Rebecca goes missing. And I asked her about that. I confronted her. She denied sending it, although it is from her Facebook account. And what I allege, everything is alleged. What I feel has happened here is that because she talked to me about wanting to have a baby with Brad. She even talked about her 14-year-old son wanting to have a sibling. And all of this was set up right around the time that Rebecca went into sort of a premature labor. She went to the hospital. It wasn't quite time. This was the day before she went missing. So I feel like the premeditation charge that came in on Courtney was because she must have researched how to do this botched C-section in the middle of the woods. In the process, the baby died. Oh. But I feel like that they were trying to take the baby and keep the baby for their own.
Well, I will be waiting for those first few hearings to see if they release any evidence of Google searches, because that very often can do a lot of people in. And when you've got this many people allegedly involved, there may be a lot of communication. And if there's that, intricate an operation that might have been required, that would be something that could show up. Boy, is it ever good that you're here. It's very complicated. Stephanie Pratt, great job at getting those interviews. And I really do believe that your interviews are going to be a huge part of any trial or case against them. Thanks so much for this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we'll call Stephanie Pratt regularly on this story. We'll keep you posted on this. Just ahead, here is a little fact that might blow your mind. This day, last year, nobody had ever heard of Luigi Mangione. Nobody outside of his friends and family, that is. But here we are, 1 year to the day after he allegedly executed a healthcare exec on a New York sidewalk. And now his own life is on the line. And in court today, they described his strip search during his arrest and a curious little USB pendant that was hanging around his neck that day. The superfans were back too, the ones using their own money to pay his lawyers. So what happens if just one of these people winds up on the jury? How do you spot them? How do you know? The person they hire to do that very job is next with me live. And check out Drop Dead Serious, deep dives into true crime stories you may not have heard yet, and definitely with a little salty after dark flair. Check out Drop Dead Serious and like and subscribe, as they say. It was 1 year ago today that a little-known CEO from a well-known health insurance company was gunned down on a New York City sidewalk. And now the suspect is not only a household name, he has legions of lovers, supporters, and fans. Fans who cheered on this murder and are helping to fund Luigi Mangione's defense. And he's presumably spending that money today, at least some of it, because today was day 3 of a pivotal hearing on his effort to throw out the most damaging evidence against him, like the gun that police say he was carrying that matched the murder weapon, and the notebook that was allegedly found inside his backpack. Today, the rookie patrolman who helped to arrest Luigi told the court that he spotted a curious little USB drive that was hanging on a necklace that Luigi was wearing when arrested. And when did he spot the USB drive? Right around here, during the strip search of Luigi, all 5 feet 11 and 160 pounds of Luigi. And the officer went into detail discussing Luigi's strip search, except for the obvious private stuff, because they actually turned their body cams off during that part of the strip search. So as for the strip search, one by one, Luigi's articles of clothing came off. Scarf. And by the way, I know this because the patrolman, Officer Tyler Fry, was listing it all out one by one, like the scarf, his jeans. Under his jeans, he was wearing long johns because he said it was cold, a couple of jackets that were layered, shirt, socks, shoes with laces, which matters because laces, can't have that in a cell. But as for the little USB that was found on his necklace, they have not yet revealed the contents of the little USB. And I, for one, am just going to say right here, I am spellbound. All I can think is, do the contents of the USB drive make the contents of the backpack irrelevant, I was also really interested in what was in Luigi's pockets. Because when he was arrested, there were lots of things, you know, like the Greyhound bus ticket with the name Sam Dawson on it. Sam, or Luigi, traveled on a Greyhound bus in seat 8C from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh on this day, December 4th, last year, the very day that Brian Thompson was shot in the back. Late today, we also got the 911 call that ended Luigi's 5 days on the run.
What is the address of your emergency? It's not really an emergency. I'm a manager at Plank Road McDonald's out here on the Boulevard. Okay. And I have a customer here that some other customers were suspicious of, that he looks like the CEO shooter from New York. He has his beanie pulled down, so the only thing you can see is his eyebrows. All right, honey, I do have an officer on the way for you. Just keep an eye on him. If he leaves, just give us a call back and let us know, okay? Alrighty, will do.
Alrighty, will do. It's pretty amazing considering the person she thought she was looking at. That guy. Clearly, nobody seemed overly concerned that there might be an executioner in their midst. Not right away, anyway. And here we are, exactly 1 year later to the day, with more than 37,000 people seemingly have no problem with the shooting and chipping in almost $1.5 million to Luigi's legal defense fund. So how will the lawyers know if any of those folks showing up for jury duty when he goes to trial may be among the lovers and the supporters? And make no mistake, Luigi's going to trial 3 times: a New York trial, Pennsylvania trial, and a federal trial. On last night's show, the organizer of Luigi's December 4th legal committee that raised all that money told us what kind of people are donating to the fund.
One thing that I've learned from reading the tens of thousands of comments on Luigi's Defense Fund webpage is that his supporters come across the political spectrum. There's doctors, there's working class people, there's poor people, there's rich people. The median donations right at about $20.
Of course, paying for lawyers is one thing, affecting a verdict is something else entirely, and just one superfan could do a verdict in.
Argument to you the other day about stealth jurors, I now reemphasize times 100. Over 37,000 people donated to this murderer. You don't think there's going to be people intentionally trying to infuse themselves into the potential jury pool and then claim that they can be fair and try to hang up this jury? I'm petrified.
Is there any hope that prosecutors can weed out the so-called stealth jurors? For the answer to that, I turned to renowned jury consultant, Dr. Lillian Glass. Dr. Glass, I don't know if I've ever seen a case like this where there are at least 37,000 people I wouldn't want on that jury right away. And I have no idea how you're going to do your job if you're one of the people picked, or people like you who do this for a living. How do you begin to try to spot the doctors, the healthcare professionals who've given to that fund, the people who've lost loved ones in health insurance denied, the people who've been denied themselves? We all have a healthcare story. How do you do your job? How do you weed out those jurors?
It's going to be so difficult. This is going to be one of the most difficult cases ever for the prosecution. And they don't just need a jury consultant, they need someone like myself who can really analyze the nuances, the micro expressions during a jury selection process. But the problem here is a jury selection process is a very short time. We don't have a lot of time to analyze everything. It's going to be so tough.
So I often hear about body language experts as well being brought into the courtroom. Do you think that there's going to be the need for actual body language experts as well as just somebody who, you know, reads the questions that are being answered?
Well, there should be a body language expert, but not just any kind of body language expert. You need a body language expert that really knows the subtleties of facial expression, of body movement, so they can see something when the questions are asked during voir dire. So you really have to be so tuned in and so experienced. Otherwise, it's worthless.
So every trial that I cover is a little bit different. Peremptory strikes and strikes for cause, you get a certain number, and they're not uniform. It's not the same in every state in every case. What do you see as being the number of, second, bites at the apple that a lot of the lawyers are going to be able to take, given the fact that they're going to have so many people that may not qualify?
Well, it's going to be fascinating because one of the things they are going to need to do is to ask, have you ever had a loved one, or have you been affected by the insurance problem, the insurance industry? And you're going to get a lot of raised hands. You're going to see a lot of people that have been affected. So it's going to be hugely difficult. It's going to be so tough to find somebody who's non-biased. And then you've got the issue of good-lookingness. And there have been studies that show that if a defendant is attractive, people are not going to convict them, definitely for the death penalty. People do respond. And attorneys know this. That's why they dress their client in certain sweaters, they put certain makeup on, they make them shave off a beard or do something with their hair. So this is very real. And these studies have gone back since the 1970s, where you really see the level of attractiveness on the jury, on how people perceive guilt or innocence.
Yeah, I'll guarantee there are a lot of people watching right now who have had a health care problem. They've had some denial, and they've been angered by it, and they feel it's unfair, and they feel some level of, attachment to the revolutionary principles of the Free Luigi folks. And so this is going to be, I think, one of the most interesting and one of the longest jury selection processes that I think the longest one I've covered is 3 months, a jury selection that was 3 months long. So I think this will be a long, long one. And I hope to see you again. Thank you for your wisdom. I so appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Always good to see Dr. Lillian Glass. All right, coming up, the state of Washington passed judgment on Gary Ridgway, the so-called Green River Killer. That was 2 decades ago. But now the final judgment may be at hand. There is word tonight that one of this country's worst serial killers is on his deathbed. So, will he take his last remaining secrets to the grave, or will investigators try to pry one last time some information out of him? And what happens to his dead body once he actually dies in prison? Our favorite serial killer researcher, scholar, and author joins me next. We talk about toe tag parole now and then. It is a true crime term for life in prison without parole. It means there's no way out of the prison building unless you're wearing a toe tag and you're en route to your grave. Gary Ridgway may be up for that kind of parole any minute now. He's better known as the Green River Killer, the serial killer who in 2003 pleaded guilty to a staggering 49 murders in the 1980s and 1990s. But he claims to have killed as many as 80. All of them women or girls, most of them sex workers or teenage runaways that he picked up near the Seattle-Tacoma airport and then dumped when they were dead around Seattle's Green River, hence the nickname. He spared himself the death penalty by promising to tell police where they could find all of his victims' remains. But as recently as a year ago, he still hadn't. Gary Ridgway is now 76 years old, and a Seattle radio station, Cairo, is citing 5 anonymous sources that report Ridgway is on his deathbed. Cairo says he is now receiving, quote, end-of-life care inside his prison. But the state prison officials deny it, insisting Ridgway, and I quote, has not had any chance or has not had any change to his medical condition. They also say that inmates sentenced to life without parole aren't eligible for end-of-life care. Still, there's a toe tag with Gary Ridgway's name on it waiting, whether it's put to use tonight or tomorrow or 10 years from now. So are investigators going to try until the very end to pull information out of him, like a deathbed confession? And can they even trust that information if they get it? And what happens to a notorious serial killer, possibly the worst in U.S. history, when he dies behind bars? What do they do with his body? I'm joined once again by Catherine Ramsland, professor of forensic psychology and author of many, many books, including Confessions of a Serial Killer. Welcome back, Doc. Okay, if Ridgway is really dying, would there be any reason for them to keep it quiet?
I think that they might be worried about a media blitz of a lot of calls coming in, media coverage before they really have a handle on it. But I can't think of any other reason why they would say he's not if he is.
So let's just imagine for a moment he is. Would they be working on getting a deathbed confession from him? Is that normal?
I think you'd have some cold case detectives at least making a try. I know that they were very dismissive in 2024 when they took him out to look for other victim remains and found nothing, and they thought that was the last shot. But I really believe, knowing the task force, at least from 20 years ago, they were pretty determined to get as much information as they could. So I think somebody will go try. And I also think Ridgway has, in fact, tried. I think his memory isn't, I mean, it's like, if it is 80 victims, that's quite a lot to remember. I know that he has tried and he has helped them find some victims, and he has admitted to 49. So it's not a complete loss, but it's not clear what you can really trust right now with him.
That was my next question. Even if he does hand over some kind of deathbed confession, how believable could it really be?
Well, it can be believable if you can corroborate it, if he gives a specific location and you do find a body, or if there are a number of cases that they think are associated with him that he has denied, but he could change course and say, actually, I did kill that one or this one. So they've gone over quite a few cases with him that he hasn't confessed to, and he could say yes. That doesn't necessarily mean it's trustworthy, but perhaps he can give them something that would help to corroborate it.
So the other question I have, and I don't know if you know protocol in a lot of these prisons, but I'm always curious about a guy who's about to exercise toe tag parole, right? You die either in your cell or in the infirmary. What happens next with his body?
So it depends on how the person has arranged things. If he has somebody with power of attorney and who will claim his body or will, go with his final wishes, then that's what will happen. That protocol will probably be followed. If there isn't anybody, then he might end up in a prison cemetery, maybe a mass. I don't really know what they do in Washington State, but I think that that's likely what would happen. I haven't heard of anybody stepping forward to get his body, or his brain for that matter. You would think that some of the neuropsychologists would want to study his brain, but I haven't heard of anybody stepping forth for that.
Boy, would I ever love that to happen, some study of his brain and others as well. That should be mandatory.
Well,
I don't know.
There are people who will do it, but they need somebody to fund it. That's the crucial thing.
Yep. Makes sense. I just personally hope that he just ends up tossed unceremoniously into a pit that's unmarked. I just feel so much for the women that he murdered and then the necrophilia that he performed until there were too many maggots. I mean, he is really just one of the worst beasts that roamed the planet. But you, on the other hand, are wonderful, and I love talking to you. Thank you, Doctor. I really appreciate this.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right, coming up next, folks, we've got you the all-access pass to Epstein Island. Never before seen photos and videos of the infamous sex trafficker's Caribbean getaway, which has only gotten more sad and pathetic with time. And that's pretty strange, considering this luxurious island was billed as something so expensive it was reserved for only the richest of the rich. 2 words about what you'll find inside: dentist chair and creepy masks. I'll take you in and show you a whole lot more than this in just a moment. Officially, it is Little St. James, a speck of a Caribbean island that Jeffrey Epstein purchased in 1998 for just under $8 million. But over time, under Epstein, it took on other unofficial names like Pedophile Island and Island of Sin, just to name a few. And while it hosted some of the world's most powerful and famous people, or maybe because of that, it was a lush, extravagant, and tropical mystery to the outside world. Until now. This week, Democrats in Congress released more than 70 photos and videos that were shot when the feds converged on Little St. James back in 2020, a year after Epstein died in custody. They photographed every room, every detail, every nook and cranny and closet and windowsill. And if you're expecting to see grotesque evidence of sex crimes, it ain't there. And if you're expecting to see luxurious showroom-styled finishings and culture and class, it ain't there either. The place is just kind of run down, neglected, and quite frankly, it's shabby and random. We can't say this for sure, that this is exactly how Epstein left everything, but there are clear indications that this is how he lived there, devoid of taste, devoid of rich people refinement. Basically, he was a classless imposter, just junk everywhere. The main house, once a glittering multi-million-dollar mansion, is just sort of a chaotic mess. Boxes are stacked everywhere. Papers are kind of just scattered. Furniture is just shoved into corners and up against walls. Bookshelves are empty. Things look like they're kind of under construction, half done, sort of like a college student abandoning a dorm for the summer. The bedrooms, where Epstein put up his A-list guests, are sparsely decorated, and everything is just kind of like white. No real decor, certainly no taste. The tech, totally outdated, but it's there, folks. It's there. Cameras in multiple rooms. And a telephone, it's there too, with some of Epstein's associates on speed dial. And you can read some of their names, but not all of them, because see those black scratches? Those are redactions. You can only wonder who they are under there and why they're redacted. But there is that photo of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with Pope John Paul II, the same one that he proudly displayed in his Palm Beach home, you know, as if to say, hey, clean as a whistle, you know, nothing to see here. Look at me, I'm with the Pope. There are virtually no personal touches anywhere. The art, if you can call it that, is kind of gaudy. Much of it is just stacked on the floor or randomly, you know, being held up against a table. And then there's this. This is like pièce de résistance. Yeah, this is a really weird room with creepy masks on the wall, strange, theatrical, brightly painted caricatures of men. And the ones that weren't hanging on the wall, they're stacked up on a counter. Very unsettling, to say the least. Hard to look away from that. Really wonder, like, what exactly was it about those that you wanted on the wall? But it's hard to look away unless you're fixated on the other part of that room. You can see in the background are the creepy masks, but that's in the middle of the room. That right there, a fully functioning electronic dentist's chair, complete with the overhead light and the spit basin. And the crap that's, you know, leaning up against the wall. Like in every room, there's just crap leaning up against the wall. You can see the masks over there sitting on the counter. I don't know, and I probably will never know, and I don't think you will either, what in the actual this dentist chair was used for in that room. I don't think I want to know. But that's the frustrating part. Even with these meticulously detailed photos and videos, so many questions remain. But they do give us something. They give us a peek into Epstein's mind, his world, and his facade. Because again, it's a real expensive, beautiful island, but everything inside where he actually had a hand is basic and classless and devoid of everything he pretended to be. Still to come, brain rot. It is real, as is evidenced in the latest TikTok trend that's going viral. It's called the door kick challenge. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like. Idiot kids trying to kick in people's front doors while rolling tape. But now 3 kids have been busted, and the local sheriff says they're lucky to be alive.
My husband was going to open the door with our gun, but he did not.
He still has his weapon out, though, correct?
His weapon is, in his hand, in case they come back.
Yeah, they were that close. Wait till you hear from the sheriff next. We leave you tonight with a warning from a sheriff in Florida. Don't try to kick in people's front doors. It's the message from the St. Johns County Sheriff in response to what's called the Door Kick Challenge on TikTok. Last month, St. Johns County deputies were called to a burglary in progress, only to find 3 kids, aged just 13 and 14, who were trying to go viral. But little did they know they were seconds away from getting shot.
911, where is your emergency?
Sweetbriar Branch Lane. Someone just tried to kick in our front door.
And did you see any weapons?
No, but my husband was going to open the door with our gun, but he did not.
He still has his weapon out, though, correct?
His weapon is, in his hand, in case they come back.
10-12 with the subjects. They got their hands up. Keep them up!
What the hell are you guys doing out here acting like this?
Just being stupid.
You guys want to get shot by a homeowner when you kick in their front door and they think you're breaking in to kill them?
No, sir.
Because it'll be justified.
Yeah. The little morons were arrested for loitering and prowling. Apparently, they'd tried their prank on multiple homes. And because of the damage, one of the kids is also charged with criminal mischief. And I can only imagine the evidence is on a phone or posted online. And to that part, the TikTok challenge, sheriff says, he's prepared to arrest any and all door kickers, regardless of age. And Florida is a stand-your-ground state. Homeowners can shoot first and ask questions later. Stay tuned, everybody. Cuomo's next.